you don't front-on attack the country with the biggest military. You turn the enemy against itself. And it's not that hard to turn the enemy against itself when you already have an environment that is polarizing. And doing that thing, all you have to do is just support the stuff the right believes to believe it even more. Just radicalize the stuff they already believe and that the left believes to believe it even more. So this is where we start to see all these things about Chinese Twitter bots and Russian interference and whatever, that other state actors are actually affecting the information ecology to be able to drive radicalization, because that turning the enemy against itself weakens the entire empire, right? Now, this is happening in a multipolar way across the whole thing. So it's not US versus China, it's radically multipolar. It's important to understand. The other part here is that even though none of the superpowers of the world, the major G8 or G20, whatever nations, are in direct kinetic warfare today, I wouldn't say it's fair to say we're in peacetime either. Maybe this is the last piece of history, and then we can kind of move into the solution space. So throughout the history of the world, the major adjacent empires never had very long periods of peace. Like war was a part of how they dealt with conflict, right? And at World War II, something changed where we could never have large-scale war between the major powers because our weapons were too big. It was too catastrophic. And so the post-World War II peace, the Bretton Woods world, is really unprecedented in the history of the world because the nuclear bomb is unprecedented in the history of the world. Until the nuclear bomb, we had the ability to totally mess stuff up locally, but we didn't have the ability to kill life on Earth, right? We didn't have the ability to induce existential risk. So that was the beginning of it, and that was from an evolutionary perspective, that's like a second ago, right? It's not much time that we got the bomb. And as a result, we said, oh, shit, we can't ever have wars again between these major powers, so how do we do that? Well, it also happens to be that the tech that gave us the bomb gave us the capacity for globalization. So let's make a globalization-based world where we're so economically interdependent that it's never profitable to go to war. It's more profitable to be in kind of trade and exchange with each other. Well, in a lot of ways that makes sense, right? And we haven't had another world war since then, so it's kind of made sense. But of course, what that also does is it means that you have a globalized rather than a bunch of localized systems, so failures anywhere can start cascading to failures everywhere. So the system as a whole becomes very fragile. It's very interconnected, but also very fragile. And we saw this with COVID. A virus in one area could become a virus everywhere, could become increasing social unrest everywhere, could become breakdowns in supply chains everywhere, could become decoupling financial markets and economies everywhere. It's like, whoa, that's a very interconnected and fragile world where failures anywhere can cascade, and there's gonna be failures in places. So the cascade potential is just very high. If you look at the agreements that were put in place in the Bretton Woods world to mediate peace, most of them have broken. Right? We see the US having pulled out of NATO, we see decreased support for the UN, we see having pulled out of the WHO, and not just during the Trump administration. It's been weakening for some time for a number of reasons. So the large countries are actually doing cyber warfare on each other, and they know they're doing it. They're doing narrative warfare and economic warfare. So what I would say is that rather than say we're in peacetime, I would say that we're in kind of a multipolar war, but that is being fought as an unconventional rather than conventional war. So it's not being fought kinetically. We're ramping the kinetic capacity, but mostly it's being fought through economic, diplomatic, info, narrative, cyber type war. And so in this situation where there is a movement from kind of peacetime agreements to something more like unconventional warfare. And from, in general, conventional to unconventional warfare as a more kind of primary tactic that has been happening over the last couple decades globally, then narrative and info warfare become some of the most central parts of that overall picture. And especially in the info ecology where you can micro-target affecting people, right? The idea of stochastic terrorism, which is, let's say, I want to drive terrorism in an area because I want to turn the enemy on itself. I want to damage the infidel or damage the social fabric of a place or whatever it is. but I want plausible deniability to never have it traced to me. Well, I can go into a group that's radicalized with a sock puppet, right, with a fake kind of account, as a international actor or a domestic actor, whatever, and just increase the radicalization through kind of support that looks pretty natural, right? Be like, let's say it's an incel group, or it's a, Boogaloo group or an Antifa group, just be sharing more stuff that is of the type that outrages them, celebrate the people who go do the acts of violence more, of what great heroes they are. And what'll happen is the already kind of on the edge, unhinged people in those groups that are close to tipping, now we tip them over. So we call it stochastic terrorism, because I don't know who will do what harm when, where, but I know that I'm increasing the pressure and the statistical likelihood that those harms occur with very difficult time being able to trace that.